And he's taking a look at Venus Place. Think about that. Yes, Senator Bach.
A different way to think about it, rather than sometime it's better to listen.
It's always better.
Let's use most.
And also, we have a former member that is now a deputy commissioner. So, Jason Metzel, welcome to your new job. This is your first day, I believe, right?
Yeah, thank you. I'll send the boss that's advice also.
And also, we have, today we have some special guests. We have the Eveleth, Virginia students are here from several different grades, and they're interested in one of the things we have on the agenda. And I think they're all out in the other room, so if you guys just want to wave at the screen, go ahead, because I'm pretty sure you can see us, but we can't see you. Anyway, we have quorum. The entire board is here, and the first order of business, because this is a new board after a new election, is the election of chair and vice chair. So I'm going to open the nominations for chair and vice chair. Senator Bach.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate for chair Representative Eklund and vice chair Representative Lewick.
Senator Bach has nominated Representative Eklund for chair and Representative Lewick for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, the nominations are closed. All those in favor of approving Representative Eklund as chair and Representative Lewick as vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion is adopted. So my first order of business is to pass this over to you. If you can't figure it out, hand it back to me, okay?
Thank you, Senator Thomasoni, and
Wanted to keep it.
I told people that I was president of the union for 9 years and chair of the county board, so I know how to use, I know how to use the gavel, and hopefully I won't have to use it as much as I did at the union meetings, that's for sure. Anyway, thank you. And I appreciate the honor and support that my fellow board members have placed in myself and
Mr. Chair.
Senator Thomasoni.
And just to point out to all of you out there, normally what we do is when we change chairmanships, we chair, the Senate has her for 2 years, and the House has her for 2 years, and then the vice chair is normally the opposite. So we generally would have picked the senator for the vice chair this year, except that we thought, in the spirit of bipartisanship and cooperating, that we would do it this way, because this is only the second time in a really, really long time that we have Republicans and Democrats on this board, and so we're just going to try and get along. So,
Thank you, Senator Thomasoni. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the December 10th, 2018. Representative Sandstead, have you had a chance to look at the minutes?
I have, and I moved them.
Minutes?
I moved the minutes.
I'm going to ask a question here. Do we do Masons or Roberts at this fine body?
you want?
Al?
Mr. Chairman, the board has never formally adopted rules, informally, Masons.
Okay.
But we always call them the chair rules.
Mr. Chairman, there's always been a dispute about this, but under the legislative Masons rules, motions don't require a second.
Right.
That's right.
But some chairs have decided to ask for a second, but
And Mr. Chairman,
Senator Thomasoni.
one of the reasons we always ask for a second is so two people get their names in the
There
minutes.
we go. Is there a second to it?
It's almost like being on TV.
Representative Lehman seconds Representative Sanchez's motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few things. I want to welcome Jason Metz as deputy, as the chair did, and we're looking forward to having Jason's knowledge. He sat on the board, he's been in the legislature, so he's going to add a lot to our team. Appreciate that. I also want to introduce another person, Brian Perpich. Brian just waved. So Brian's been with us for a good part of the last year as a loan officer. He was hired, a very experienced financial guy, and he's going to be presenting later, and I didn't want you to wonder who he was when he came up later, so welcome,
Hockey
Brian.
referee too, so I
Is
know.
he?
I know.
All right. The other thing I wanted to congratulate the regional air park over in Hibbing just got an official award of a Minnesota shovel-ready certified site. And it just happened this morning, so I thought that we'd be the first to announce that. I don't know if Sean is here. I don't think they have anything on the agenda, but congratulations to the Hibbing Air Force for that. The other thing I just want to point out is because it might come up at future meetings, I just give you a heads up that the city of Buell, you know, we had the issue with the old Buell School with their tenant in the school had problems, and, you know, 138 people lost their jobs, and we've been searching for solutions of what to do with that property. It's quite a valuable piece of property. So the city has been working, and I believe they've introduced legislation. So if some of you are authors, if you want to chime in, you can, but we're working on getting a mental health facility for the area, particularly focused on youth, I believe, established there with an existing established operator. And it's going to be a difficult deal because there's lots of moving parts and different funding sources, and they all have to kind of line up and come together. So I don't know if anybody else has any comments on that, or...
Well, they all have to come together is a pretty good comment, so there's a lot of work to do yet. And there's approvals that has to come from both the federal and state government, and the money has to be approved. So yeah, we have a ways to go, but I think it's a really good idea. It's just a matter of getting the stars to all align.
And the agency's been aware for quite some time about the need for these mental health facilities. It's becoming a crisis, actually, around here. So if you have adolescent placed around here, they usually have to go to Fargo or beyond. So, and that's not conducive to families having a child somewhere that far away. So we're hoping that we can get that done.
Commissioner? And on that, yesterday we heard a bill in jobs on expanding a child health, mental health facility in Woodbury.
Yeah.
And my question was, is this a statewide effort? And they said, well, it can be, but we're so overwhelmed that it's just basically from the 7-county metro area for what they service. And they're looking at putting 40 new people on.
Right.
And there's that much of a demand. So.
Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Sandsted.
one of the things that, you know, is really going to be the biggest struggle here is a workforce shortage. That's a really significant issue, and I think there's undoubtedly the support for the need for a facility like this, but getting it up off the ground is going to be a real heavy lift, because even the people that we're working with have acknowledged there might not be the staffing for it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, go
I'm
ahead,
gonna move on.
Commissioner.
Okay, so the last thing I want to bring up is, you know, we had a change in the statutes in 2017. So the statutes of IRRRB, as far as the power between the commissioner and the board, was the same from about 1941 to 1995, and there was kind of a switch in 95 that where the board became more of the authority and had to approve projects and things. And then in 17, Representative Raymond's bill reverted it back to how it was originally, where the board was advisory. And it was called to my attention that, you know, sometimes it's clear we say we're approving projects. So when the board acts, they're really approving resolutions that recommend to the commissioner to fund a project. So when we say we're approving a project, we're approving a resolution. But in fact, neither the board or the commissioner can do a project alone. I'm not allowed to act without advice from the board, it's in the statute. And now they can't act without me. So we're a good partnership, and I think we get along. But, you know, so somebody pointed out maybe the public's unaware of how this all works. So I just wanted to just throw that out there, so that we don't do it on every resolution. The resolutions we pass today are recommendations to the board, from the board to the commissioner to fund the project. So any questions on that, I'd be happy. I have the statutes and everything. If people want to
Commissioner?
know.
Representative Sandsted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recommendations are equal to advice, same as?
Yeah, the resolutions say.
just, that's more for the public, just so you understand, we're
Yep.
giving advice to the commissioner.
Correct.
Senator Bach.
Well, I just, this is our first board meeting since the commissioner was reappointed by the governor. He's the acting commissioner right now until the Senate takes up his confirmation, but before we get too advisory, he's the acting commissioner. But I do want to publicly thank all the board members and thank the governor for the wise decision to keep Commissioner Phillips on for maybe as long as he would like to stay, but so thanks to all the board members for supporting that, and thanks to the governor for, unlike the other 20-plus commissioners that are not coming back under the Walz administration, I believe there's only 3 or 4 maybe that stayed out of more than 20. Commissioner Phillips is one of them, so just want to publicly thank the governor for suggesting that Commissioner Phillips stay on.
And I'd like to thank all of you that supported me. I made it a point not to try to do too much lobbying for the job. I thought, you know, if I had the job for 4 years, that, you know, I worked hard at it, but you never know if your performance is evaluated by others, you'd get the same report card. So I thought, I'll just let the chips fall where they may. So, but thank you for, I know many of you in the room supported me, so thank you very much for that.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay.
Any other comments or Commissioner's report? All right, moving on to the agenda, number 5 on the agenda, American Peat Technology Resolution 19-020. Matt and Mr. Trevor and Mr. Purpich. Mr. Purpich.
Mr. Chair, and fellow board members, the first project on the agenda is American Peat Technologies. They're looking to add an expansion and to their existing business in Aiken, Minnesota. The project consists of a total project cost of $7.375 million, of which Bremer Bank has already committed $5.25 million. And what we're looking at is approval for $750,000. We do have Doug Green, who's the CEO, and Roger Sorben, who's the CFO, here today. If you have any questions regarding the project and what they're planning on doing.
Gentlemen, if you'd like to come up and speak about the project for a few minutes, you can. Please identify yourself for the record and explain what you're planning on doing.
I'm Douglas Green, CEO of American Peat.
And I'm Roger Sorben, CFO of American Peat Technology. And the project, we have a great demand for our product, which is utilizing peat from a resource right in, within a mile of our plant. We make a granular carrier for the ag industry to carry beneficial bacteria out to certain crops. Legume crops, soybeans, field peas, chickpeas, and this allows the bacteria allows the plants to fix nitrogen and grow better crops. And the demand for the market has increased greatly. We are not fulfilling the demand that we have, and we need to expand our plant. We need to expand it fairly rapidly because the product demand is there and we're shorting the market. And so these funds are going to be utilized for additional drying equipment. Our process is harvesting the peat, drying it, compressing it in pellet machines, drying it some more, and crumbling it down to the granular size similar to coffee grounds, which we sell in bulk to our customers.
Anything else? Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Representative Rook.
could you give us just a little bit of history on how long the company's been in business and kind of where you started and where you're at today?
Okay, I was there from the beginning. In late 2003, American Peat Technologies formed as an LLC to buy out the failed company, former company was Peat Technologies, excuse me. And we bought that out in 2003. At the time, with our annual production was about 55 truckloads, and we had 4 employees. Over the years, we've grown relatively consistently to the point where this last year, we produced a total of 800 loads, but at the last 4 months of the year, we were producing at the rate of 1,200 loads per year. New equipment had been installed and increased our rate to 1,200 loads per year. We thought we had the market filled at that point, and then we experienced an increase again. The customers are calling, and they would like to go to as high possibly as 1,500 to 1,700 loads per year. And this requires expansion of the equipment inside the plant, and that's what this loan is targeting. Primarily filter presses, which is a patented process that we have at American Peat for dewatering peat, produced by a dredging operation. So the proceeds from this loan would be used for dredging equipment, filter presses to additional filter presses. This is already a proven technology. And then additional second stage drying equipment. Roger mentioned 2 drying steps. We need to upgrade our second stage drying step as well. So those are the 3 primary purposes.
Thank you. Senator Rude.
And Mr. Chair and members, I would just like, many of the members on the board have gone to tour the facility, and it's really an amazing process, and to see what they've done there. And so I would just encourage your support, and if you have not gone to see the facility, I'm sure they would be more than happy to give you a tour on it, because it's a really amazing thing that they're doing there.
Great.
Senator Bach?
Well, Mr. Chairman, to the owners, what are the hours of operation? Do you work 1 shift or 2 shifts, or?
Currently, we are operating the plant about 360 days a year, 24 hours a day. And so when we're talking about our 1,200 loads per year capacity, we can't figure out how to get 28 hours a day out of it. So we're working it pretty hard right now. And even looking in the future, we operate, we've got 4 crews for operations. They work 12-hour shifts, 7 days out of 14. So we've got some good paying jobs. We're continually, struggling to get good operators and good people to work for that. And then along with that, there's the maintenance people that go along with it. And we're also looking to do some expansion into another area to expand and feed the future demand. But that additional plant and plant site, there's a lot of permitting to get to the point of having being able to have that approved and go forward with those plans. And so in the interim, we have to expand our current operations to meet product demand.
Senator Thompson.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you're going to get only 6 new people with this expansion?
Right, we're going to add 6 additional jobs, and so that we will be, even since some of this, the process started to get this loan application, we've added about 3 jobs, and for sure we'll be adding an additional 6, and that's on the conservative side, and it could be up to 10 additional jobs.
Okay. And
Senator Thompson.
I hate to ask this question, but is there any issue with permits?
Not done.
Other than the expense, I believe that we're going to be successful with the permitting. We're about $2 million into a $7 million expense track, if you will. So far, the DNR has been good to work with.
Well, the permits that we're talking about are for a future plant. Currently, our current operations, we have the permits, and we're in the process of finalizing an air permit, which we don't see any issues with. And so this loan presentation is not going to be affected by the obtaining any permits. It's for our future site that we're seeking additional permits.
Senator Thompson. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, I would move adoption.
Representative Wilk moves Resolution 19-020. Senator Wood, you want to second that?
Sure.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Next on the agenda is Resolution 19-021. Mr. Schoberg and Mr. Purpich again.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll introduce this project. The next project for consideration is a non-recourse loan in the amount of $600,000 to the Hibbing Economic Development Authority for the purchase of a 31,000 square foot industrial property that will accommodate an expansion of R&B Laboratories Incorporated. R&B has been working with the agency for quite some time in an effort to establish a full-service analytical testing facility in our region. Since this summer, they've focused on the current site in Hibbing. The property under consideration formerly housed DMR Electronics, which was purchased by Detroit Diesel and is currently located in the building at Chisholm-Hibbing Airport that's owned by the Airport Authority that was previously financed by the agency. R&B is in negotiations to lease about 17,000 square feet of the facility, with the remaining space to be used for future economic development purposes. The proposed loan would carry an interest rate of 0% with repayment coming from net lease revenues on the facility. Tom Dicklich of the Hibbing EDA and Bob Borash of R&B are in attendance, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions of the board.
Gentlemen, if you'd like to come forward, if you have any comments. Senator Bach.
Maybe while they're coming up, Mr. Schoberg, for the benefit of the new board members that don't know what a non-recourse loan is, maybe you can tell us.
Thank you, Senator Bach.
Senator Bach, members of the board, non-recourse loan basically speaks to the fact that the EDA will be assuming no obligation to repay the debt other than the net lease revenues that are generated from the facility. The agency will have a mortgage on the property, but we can't obligate the EDA to pay cash that they aren't generating from the project.
Gentlemen, please identify yourself and proceed.
Go ahead. Mr. Chair, members, I'm Tom Dicklich. I'm the city administrator for the city of Hibbing.
My name is Robert Borish, the founder and CEO of R&B Environmental Laboratories.
So, either one of you want to tell us what you have going on, what your plans are?
Well, yeah, most definitely. We really appreciate the opportunity and the welcome that we've received from the city of Hibbing, as well as the IRRRB, to give us the opportunity to establish an expanded service facility in the city of Hibbing. This is something that we've been looking at for about 5-6 years. Our company is 23 years old. We have we have 4 other facilities, and this is going to be our second flagship, focusing on more of a full-service entity. It could be located anywhere in the tri-state area, but the welcome that we received up here, as well as to the Iron Range, as well as to the city of Hibbing, has been well received, and it was a leading factor in our decision to locate it in Hibbing, Minnesota. So.
Thank you. Representative Sandsted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you tell us a little bit about the number of jobs that you're looking at bringing in on this expansion, the pay, benefits?
Yep, most definitely. Right out of the gates, we're probably looking at 6 to 9 that'll be here within probably the next 30 to 45 days. Following that, within the first 18 months, we're looking at about 13 to 15. Within probably 2 years, we'll be looking in the mid-20s, and then the sky's the limit from there.
Good. Any follow-ups?
Benefits?
Pay-wise, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
On the lower end, it's hourly wages are anywhere from $15 to $19 an hour. Salary range all the way up to in the 90s, mid-90s range. So.
Representative Sandsted.
And just one more, thank you. Like, what kind of qualifications would a person need to come and work at a facility like this?
Most of your senior chemists, as well as your main chemists and analysts, have either a 2-year, but most likely a 4-year degree in a science field, biology, chemistry. Those are the two primary ones. We tend to try and find college graduates, but also our company right now employs about 51 faces. About 9 or 10 of those are college interns that allow them to get real job experience, real life job experience. We'll be looking at that same thing in Hibbing as well. And so it's just kind of a wide spectrum, but really individuals that either have a science degree or are pursuing a science education or science degree.
Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Sandsted. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Thomasoni.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the initial 17,000 square feet that you are going to occupy could serve to the entire 31,000 square feet?
Absolutely. We, to be honest with you right now, we've filled the 17,000 square feet, or we're in the planning zone. It's going to be filled very quickly. And the expectation is that we initially would hope that we would take over the other half of the building in time.
Senator Thomasoni.
I'm good.
Any other questions from the board? Representative Sandsted will move, I'm sorry, Senator Bach.
Mr. Chairman, is there anybody else on the range doing the same kind of work that you do?
Yeah, there's currently a similar company on the Iron Range right now, but there's only one. And the services that we're bringing to the Iron Range are very similar, but also very different. We're bringing different analytical capabilities that aren't being processed on the Iron Range right now. And so we wouldn't be coming to the Iron Range if we weren't also hearing from potential clients and the industry out there that they're looking for another option, as well as the additional services that we can bring to the range.
Senator Bach.
Thank you. Well, my reason for mentioning that to the board members that are new is we've always been a little bit careful of helping a business in one town only to lose a competitor in a neighboring one. So I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a duplicate of something that someone else is doing, that they end up losing business volume while you gain some with the support of the board. Thank you.
And if I can comment on that, we're looking to bring a tri-state work volume to the Iron Range. This facility could be down in the metro, it could be anywhere in the tri-state area. The workload that's specific to the analytes and the testing that we're going to be doing will be funneled through our internal courier service from the North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota area up to the Iron Range. So it's just not servicing the Iron Range clientele.
Mr. Schober.
Senator Bach, board members, just as part of our due diligence, we did talk to folks in the industry, and we did determine that while some of the services that they're providing are already being provided in the region, they do provide a much broader range of testing capability that they'll be bringing with this project.
If this was local number 159, he'd owe $5 to the beer fund now.
That doesn't buy many beers anymore.
We do have a lot of phones that go off. Senator Thomasoni.
Oh, no, I was just saying one beer.
Any other questions from the board? Representative Sandsted moves resolution 19-021. Senator Thomasoni, you want to second that? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Resolution 19-022, Midwest Manufacturing and Mechanical. Mr. Schoberg and Mr. Sunball.
Mr. Chair, about Mr. Sunball will be presenting this.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our next loan is for Midwest Manufacturing Incorporated. We do have co-owner Mike Stiglitz here. It's basically a straight-up participation equipment loan with American Bank. With the new equipment, Midwest, they're planning on hiring 1 to 2 new people. And if you have any questions, Mike is here to answer anything on the project.
Go ahead, sir. Please identify yourself.
I'm Mike Stiglitz, president of Midwest Manufacturing. We started out in '07. I was doing the same thing in '07, and I I think I only remember a couple of you. We're doing something right because I'm outliving you guys, so. But we're looking for new equipment to make us, more, just make us more efficient in what we're doing. Our other hydraulic press is getting a little older, and we're looking for CNC equipment. A little bit about our company. We do, after these last, everybody knows what happened in '08 and the last turn down. I don't ever want to go through that again, where we have layoffs. So we've worked the last 5-6 years, and we basically do about 70 to 75%. We're taking jobs totally out of the area. Has nothing to do with this area. In fact, right now, last week we shipped out a structural job that is going to a power plant in the Dominican Republic, which we had to, it was a rush job, and we had to truck everything to Chicago, and they flew it down there. So we just got a call yesterday, and the same job, they want us to do a bunch of insulated ductwork worth somewhere about, haven't finished the price yet, but somewhere around $250,000 that we have to run out. We really targeted out of this area. I don't want to ever get into the cyclical ups and downs of everybody knows the taconite industry, and it's worked out well. We're an OEM we design and manufacture valves for a company out of New York City. We we're L&M Radiators #1 vendor, certified level 1 vendor, where they don't have to check our work. We build a lot of the Komatsu for them, and we're planning on just keep growing that, out of the area business. So things slow down, we don't worry as much. The 1 to 2 people, that's basically, we're gonna have a couple people trained on the machines because they are CNC operated. But I'll be honest with you, if I could hire 10 to 15 tomorrow, I'd do it. But there's not, the trades are low. So if we can do anything with the tech schools, I would appreciate it, because it's very hard to find any trade.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Commissioner.
See Roy Smith in the corner over there? Our workforce guy. No, we had these issues with L&M and Komatsu and everything about welders, and we developed a 10-week welding program to help them get some entry-level welders in. So maybe there's some opportunities here to help you understand what you need, and maybe we can help you find some more people.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any questions from the board? Senator Bach?
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering if you should appoint a group to take a field trip to the Dominican this winter. And maybe take a look at how their stuff is applied at the field.
That sounds like a good idea to me, Mr. Senator Bach. Representative Lehman.
I'm just going to ask Representative Sandsted's question, which is, because I'm really interested, as I go to talk to employers like you, it's the #1 obstacle to growth in our economy, and if our growth is going to come from businesses that are here, and they're all looking for workers, I mean, that's where our attention and energy should go, is to help get those workers to our local employers who can expand. So my question to you is, in addition to welders, what other kind of skill set are you looking for when people walk in the door looking for a job?
Well, mainly it's not just welding. They have to be able to read blueprints and be able to do layout. So it's not just the act of welding. It's there's blueprint reading, laying. You're laying stuff out in the flat. You're being able to read blueprints.
So it requires some technical.
Representative Lehman.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Chair. Requires some technical training beyond high school.
Yes, definitely beyond high school.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'll just make this comment. One of the things that, my goodness, we did that in the 9th grade in high school some time ago, where we didn't have to read blueprints, we had to draft and produce them in high school. So we should be delivering to those technical schools 12th graders that can do all of that. And then they go to the next level. So not to disagree with Representative Lehman, but I can tell you, there was several decades ago, we did a much better job at the high school level, getting the folks ready to go on to that next level. Because, yeah, that was really interesting to take a stubby pencil and a big drafting board and start from scratch and lay down products, design them, you know, pretty simple ones. But we got to get that back in the high schools.
Commissioner.
So, you know, this area lost about 25–30% of its population between the early 1980s and now, because the U.S. government wouldn't enforce their trade laws. I don't know why. If we hope to attract people back here, we need to improve the quality of life in our area so that if he has a job, somebody actually wants to live around here. So, healthcare, schools, all the things that we talk about at these board meetings and fund, I mean, this is important stuff, because you're not gonna find an employee if nobody wants to live in Nashwauk or wherever you're located. Nashwauk, Keewatin? Where are you?
Biggest employer in Nashua.
Yeah. So, when I'm not getting on a soapbox about quality of life issues, it's important stuff, because that's how we're gonna grow our workforce around here, and our schools will do better, and everybody will do better.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator Bach.
Mr. Chairman, just to Senator Lehman's point, it's just not as easy as creating a technical school program. I mean, we have a problem in northeastern Minnesota with the fact that the mines set kind of the area standard of wages. And young people with a good skill set with their hands, there's a lot of opportunities in the mines. There's a lot of retirement there, and it's very difficult for our smaller businesses that are vendors to them or are trying to do other things like you are to compete for wages. So, I mean, and that's just always going to be an obstacle here when you've got a big industrial sector like we have. So I wish it was as easy as having Roy Smith put together a program over at the college to attract some young people. But we're going to train them, and they're going to go to work at KETAC and UTAC, and good for them, right? But it's going to be always, I think, going to be hard for us with the smaller level businesses that just can't afford to pay those kind of wages and be competitive with competitors around the state or the tri-state region.
Well, Representative Luke, we have another thing coming up further down the agenda that might address your concerns that you talked about, and I think Mr. Smith might have his work cut out for him. So, any other comments from the board? All right, Senator Thomas, I'm going to move Resolution 19-022, seconded by Representative Sandsted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Good luck.
Good luck, yep. Next on the agenda is Resolution 19-023, and Mr. Schoberg and Mr. Ismail.
Mr. Ismail will introduce the public works project.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I have 6 FY19 infrastructure projects for your review and recommendation. The total IRRRB investment would be $1.267 million. The total investment, everything included private also, would be $15.2 million. The leverage is $1 agency money for $9 private. First project, City of Cook, grant request from the city, $350,000. They're requesting these dollars for emergency grant for on-site water sewer upgrades and site work for the redevelopment of Zoop's Food Market. A fire on November 12, 2018 destroyed the grocery store. Zoop's began serving Cook and the surrounding area in May of 1998. It operated continually until the fire halted its business. At the time of the fire, Zoop's employed 44 union employees, 20 were full-time. The business provides grocery supplies and services to thousands of rural residents, tourists, and resorts in the region north of Virginia. Throughout the past 20 years, Zoop's has consistently been back to the community and surrounding region in many ways. The owners of Zoop's are planning to rebuild at their current location where the original facility operated. The store architectural engineering plans are in place and should provide an opportunity to grow and increase jobs. The owners Plan on building construction to begin March, April, so even while the ground is froze, they want to get out and start tearing out the cement slabs and putting get stuff in the ground. This project will ensure that residents in Cook and the surrounding area have access to groceries and essential products without having to travel 60 to 100 miles round trip. The project is expected to retain 44 permanent jobs and create 33 construction jobs.
Any questions from the board on this project?
I do have representatives from the city of Cook and Zoops here, if you have
This is where
questions.
Senator Bach and I shop, you know.
Let's keep
that in mind. Right?
I'd like them to pass.
Representative Sandsted.
Would you like to wait for comments at the end when all of these projects are?
We can run through them all, and then if you want to
can do
if
that.
anybody has questions, sure.
One resolution.
Second project for consideration, Cook County Grand Ray EDA. Grant amount requested $100,000. The Cook Economic Development Authority is requesting funds to assist with a local business expansion project. Northhouse Folk School strategic plan addresses the need for additional education campus capacity. The school will expand its footprint to include the Dockside Fish Market, which is a unique lakefront parcel adjacent to the Northhouse Folk School's campus property. Project is expected to create 5 permanent jobs and 3 construction jobs. Next project for consideration, City of Crosby. Grant amount $350,000 being requested. Consists of infrastructure and site work for the construction of a new lodge hotel within the city limits of Crosby. The new proposed facility is a 35,000 square foot, 3-story, limited service, 50-room hotel and conference center, meeting space capacity for 80 people. There are currently no hotels in Crosby. The project is expected to create 10 permanent jobs and 36 construction jobs. And this project comes on the heels of a boom that we're seeing over there in Crosby with several new business developments really tied to this bicycle, mountain biking, tourist trails industry, and some of those additional investments that are coming to the community we are partnering in the form of grants and other programs that we have here. City of Meadowlands, grant request is $35,000. The project consists of stormwater and culvert upgrades on Western Avenue and Scott Avenue in Meadowlands. The culverts have exceeded their life expectancy and through deterioration have caused residential backups and flooding. The project is expected to create 2 construction jobs. City of McKinley, request is for $337,000. The project consists of the replacement of water and sewer infrastructure. County State Aid Highway 20 is being reconstructed, and McKinley needs to replace some aged infrastructure underneath this highway. It's a basic infrastructure upgrade problem at an opportune time while that road's being dug up and those costs are being covered by the county. Project is expected to create 5 construction jobs. City of Silver Bay, grant amount request is $250,000. Project consists of new water and sanitary sewer replacement in the city of Silver Bay. The new water line will be part of a looping project, which will be the construction of a new water main segment to connect to the existing water main on the west side of Minnesota Highway 61 to the existing main in Arthur Circle. The sanitary trunk line portion of the project consists of replacement of a portion of the existing water main sanitary sewer line immediately upstream to the city's treatment plant. The project is expected to create 12 construction jobs, and the total project is about a $1.8 million project. And then that covers the 6 requests. There's an additional request, and this is a grant amendment increase in funds for the city of Virginia. They were given a grant award at a previous meeting on December 10th, I believe. The award was for $110,000. That grant amount was based on what the city anticipated in receiving in local road improvement funds. They received much less and elevated their cost to about $1.6 million to the taxpayers. Once we hit the $1.5 million mark, where tax burdens taken on by the taxpayers, we generally give close to that full $250,000 request. That's kind of a max we do on these. So the request here would be for an increase in $130,000 for that project for Midway Drive. This is Midway Drive right off of 53. from Canada Drive to Virgin Road. The reconstruction also includes the replacement of water mains, sewer mains, storm sewer located under Midway Drive, and includes 2 intersections, Vermillion and Masaba Drive, Moore Drive and Virgin Road. The existing infrastructure under Midway Drive is very old, deteriorated, needs to be replaced. Midway Drive has 3 accesses to US Highway 53. And of course, this all ties into the 53, that portion of 53 around Midway Drive being reconstructed and tied into the new bridge. There are existing businesses that are there on Midway Drive and Midway, and it's access to all the residential in that area. It's a good project. I'll entertain any questions on any of the projects at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ismail. Any questions from the board on any of these projects? Representative Sandsted.
In reference to the North House Folk School, what kind of jobs are they looking at? It says the project is projected to create 5 permanent jobs. What kind of jobs are these?
The North House Folk School is, I would refer to it as alternative school, specific to, I don't know what to use, trades, taking us back to a different era, very unique to that community. And as part of the Dockside Fish Market acquisition, that business has been bought up and in some cases kept open versus being closed down by the school and just using the land. They've kept that business open. It's being leased out, as I understand it, to an entity who operate that business. So employment was held there. And they're doing they acquired additional buildings that business was using as part of the fishing trade. And they revitalized those buildings, are in the process of doing construction on those buildings to offer more classes, pay more instructors. So I believe it's direct employment to the folk school's instruction component of the school.
So educational?
Correct.
Representative Sandsted.
And then can you also tell me, it seems like we've seen this organization before the board. Do you know how many times they've come before, and maybe talk a little bit about what that was for?
So this should be the second time in my tenure here, and prior I would have to do some record searching, but I don't think there's been investment in this agency. This is almost a second component. So initially they came with a request as part of this acquisition to expand their campus, and the request was lower than the need. And really the way this should have been presented to the board and the commissioner was as an amendment increase to their existing grant, and that was my intent. But we gave that grant, just so happens, just prior to the end of the last fiscal year. And once you jump into a new fiscal year, we can't amend that grant. So as much as this is a new grant, it's a new grant for technical reasons because we're in a new fiscal year. Otherwise, this would have been an amendment to show there was an increase in need for that property acquisition, and it wouldn't be presented as a new grant. So,
Representative Sandsted and then Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then just, not a question at all, but just a comment to the community members of Cook and stuff. You know, the fire that happened that you experienced was devastating. And I just want to wish the owners and the community all the best in moving forward. And this is just a feel-good moment for the board to be able to help them out.
Thank you. Commissioner and then Senator Bach.
Well, I just real quickly, the folk school in Grand Marais teaches, you know, some of the things they teach are kind of dying arts. You know, they do blacksmithing and turning wood, and you know, and a lot of it's a border on crafts and things like that. But they're very so they're not in competition with anybody, even regionally or statewide, probably for a lot of these things. And people pay and come from all over the United States and the world to Grand Marais to take this training. This is an economic engine for Grand Marais like we haven't seen. So if you talk about diversifying the economy around here, this is true diversification. So we go out of our way to figure out how to be creative, to figure out, because they give a lot of leverage. So there's lots of private money going into this operation as well. I think they could come up here and talk about, but Margaret Cargill Foundation, I believe, is one of the big benefits. So we are supplementing a lot of private foundation investment into that. But if you look at what it does for the community, economic development wise, we hardly get a better bang for our buck than this deal, so.
Thanks, Commissioner. Senator Bach.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to personally express to the Zaponcich family a thank you for rebuilding this focus. Because I've heard from a lot of people in the Twin Cities that have cabins up here. The parking lot across the street today is packed full of 4-place snowmobile trailers. There are a lot of people that depend on that grocery store. And they've got 5 stores in our region. It's a family-owned business. The real principals of that family are my age, and they were vastly underinsured. And the family is putting a lot of personal money into this, a lot. And in addition to that, there were reasons to not rebuild this. I mean, they have significant unfunded pension liability with their union contract that they could have walked away from. But as a family, they decided not to. So it is an amazing story of what the Zaponcich family has done for the Iron Range over the decades. And this investment they're going to make in this facility, I just deeply want to thank that family for doing that.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Look.
Just a comment on the proposal from the city of Crosby. To say that there's no significant lodging in the immediate area is kind of an understatement, and it's a credit over time. There's a lot of growth going on in that area. There's a lot of new businesses on Main Street. One of the problems is the old hotel from the 40s, just there's not much you can do with those buildings. So this is a huge opportunity to put another piece of that economic development back in place there, because it's a good problem to have. They're busing people in from places like Cross Lake and down at Bay Lake, and because that's the lodging is quite a ways away. You know, we've got a nice little hotel in Deerwood, just a few miles away, and that place is booked. So this is just a really important economic development piece in that area, and the city's going through. They're going to redo 210 right down Main Street, and you can imagine the kind of costs that you incur as you're doing a major state highway redo in the middle of the city. So they got their hands full, but this will really make a difference on being able to take care of that city-owned utilities that are necessary if you're going to bring a new business into town, especially one with a footprint this size.
Thank you, Representative Look. Any other comments? I'll just comment quickly on the North House School and Cook County EDA, what they're going to do. Ms. Somnus is in the audience, and she committed to Senator Bach and I, after we had to talk about it, to talk and let their people know that these are mining result tax dollars that are funding these projects, so that we'll have that when people apply for them, they're going to firmly know where the money's coming from. So thank you, Mary, for committing to do that. Any other comments from the board? Senator Bach will move resolution 19-023, seconded by Representative Lislegard.
Made the minutes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Resolution 19-024, Iron Range School Consolidation and Cooperatively Operated School Account. Mr. Smith, come on. No, you're here.
I am here, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Just brief hiatus, Mr. Chair, if we could, because I think we want to move some of our students.
Yeah, we'll give it a few minutes, things to clear out.
Thank you.
And move forward, so.
David, you want to grab that copy?
If it makes it to you.
I know my place. It's at the end of the line.
We'll only need half a cup, right?
You have to behave yourself over here.
I'm gonna tune.
Would you?
Help you get your.
Hey, thanks for putting me in the comic
rhythm.
relief.
Better chance than previously, but
That means you have to start humming right away.
There's a couple more right back here.
I won't short shop you, but if there's anything left in there.
I gotta figure out how to get this open first. No, you guys are the
Yesterday I had 3 breakfast by 9 o'clock. I was so overcaffeinated by 9, I was like,
That's why Buell ended up with Mountain Iron, because they.
I always remember at times like this, that most people in the audience, they want us to be successful. So, they do.
Yeah.
So they'll help.
We're ready to go.
I think it is.
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order here. First off, I'd like to welcome the students from Eveleth and Virginia that are here to see how government agencies function, and so welcome. Mr. Smith, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Eklund, Commissioner Phillips, members of the board. I couldn't have better timing for the conversation after the Midwest Manufacturing presentation and the need for a skilled workforce in the region. This project certainly seeks to address that need. The Eveleth, Gilbert, and Virginia school districts are requesting up to $98 million paid out in $4.9 million annual installments over 20 years for the construction of a new collaborative school for grades 7 through 12 and upgrades to the elementary schools. Discussions regarding school collaboration on the East Range are not new. Over the past 30 years, there have been at least 15 different studies and meetings about area schools working together and sharing resources. Discussions pertaining to this specific Academies project have been going on for 2 years now. And to date, there have been over 100 meetings involving the 2 school districts. And these meetings have included school boards, committees, students, businesses, and community citizens. And a large survey project has been completed as well. The impetus behind this transformational Academies-based project is a shift occurring away from the traditional subject-based high schools to a more personal, project-based, realistic, student-centered, interdisciplinary, and relevant high school experience grounded in community and business partners. This results in students being more successful in their post-secondary experiences and their careers. Currently, there are 3 academies being proposed for this particular project. One is a business management, administration, arts and communications and information systems academy. The second is an engineering, manufacturing, technology, ag, food and natural resources academy. And the third is a health sciences, technology and human services academy. In your packets, you'll see that there are 2 potential funding scenarios for this project. One at approximately $164 million, and the contributions vary from the agency to the state of Minnesota to local taxpayers based on that amount, and the figures are in your packet attached to the memo. And the second is a larger sum of $181 million that would include a different funding formula from the agency, or the agency contribution would remain the same. I'll say that again. Regardless of the dollar amount, whether it's the $163 million project or the $181 million project, the amount from the agency remains the same. The amount from the state and the amount from the local taxpayers are the subjects, or the amounts that would vary. There is also, Senator Bach will know more about this than I do, potential Minnesota special property tax refund dollars that could apply as well. Under either proposal, the annual commitment from the agency again will remain at $4.9 million, and the following criteria must be met to access the funds. One, this has already been completed. A grant application must be submitted to the agency. Secondly, approval from the commissioner based upon advice from the board of this board. Thirdly, resolutions in support of the project from the school boards of Virginia and Eveleth Gilbert, and then 4, the successful passage of a referendum by the residents of both districts. If the criteria above are successfully met, construction of the new school will likely begin in 2020 and take 2 years to complete, with the elementary projects to follow. The districts recently published a detailed information about the collaboration project in a question and answer format, which is attached in this memo. I have with me today Superintendent Jeff Carey, Superintendent Noel Schmidt, Greg Crow from Ellers, and John Hunick from Kraus Anderson, along with students from both districts. I see some board members, other administrators and teachers from both districts as well. We have a short presentation we'd like to share, Mr. Chair, if that is acceptable to you.
Please proceed, Mr. Smith. You can identify yourselves for the record.
Jeff Carey, Superintendent at Eveleth Gilbert Schools.
Noel Schmidt, Superintendent, Virginia Public Schools.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we appreciate you taking the time to have us here tonight. As you can see, we have a large group of supporters in back of us, and we'll allow them to come up and speak for a little bit as well, but we wanted to give you a little background information on what we've done and why we're doing it. So for the last 2 years, as Mr. Smith said, the 2 respective school boards have been meeting. They've met almost a dozen times now. Formally, we've had over 100 different public meetings that allow anyone from the public to come and participate. We've also formed 8 different community task force, which they've dealt with numerous topics such as academic programming, finance, site selection, facilities, those types of things. We've done 2 public surveys, one minor just to gauge interest last summer, and then we had another one recently, a little more specifically, and you'll see in a bit that we're at about a 75% approval rating as far as should we be doing this or not. And that was the main purpose of the survey, is to see if we're out in left field or if this is something that the communities are genuinely interested in. So through all of that, we basically have honed in on a 7-12 academy-style high school, which we'll explain here in a little bit. And along with that, because we'd be moving kids from both our high schools into one building, we're looking at renovating our elementaries as well to some degree. So why are we doing this? The number one answer would be to change the educational opportunities for the students of Virginia and Eveleth Gilbert. The world around us is changing. With the skills that our students, and you've already heard this today, are needing are changing as well. So looking at some of the what we call next century skills: critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration and leadership, adaptability, initiative, oral and written communication, accessing and analyzing information, and imagination. Another reason is to address the significant building needs in both schools. Eveleth Gilbert and Virginia are both in the top 5 in the state as far as age of facilities. You can see on that slide some of the various areas and age of some of those buildings. Along with that, as mentioned earlier in this meeting as well, population decline in the area, enrollment decline, our outdated facilities all lead to less dollars, having to cut some of the major programs that we have, and then we still have this pressure to deliver this 21st century education, if you will, and the communities the meetings that we've had have basically come up with this as an idea of how we can combat that, and that is better efficiency through administration, transportation, operation and maintenance, educational programming. So with that, I'll turn it over to
I've been sitting in the back of the room here and listening to the presenters ahead of me talk about workforce development, talk about lack of workers, and I got people poking me in the back saying, you need to ask for more money. Have we got something for you as a way to help solve some of these problems? Because what we're hearing, you're hearing workforce shortage, you're hearing lack of skilled workers, hard to find workers. These are all things that are a fastball coming right down the middle of the plate as far as the career academies that we're talking about between Eveleth and Virginia, Eveleth, Gilbert, and Virginia. The first area is economic development, which will happen as a result of this. Is that, now I'm not originally from the range, but it's very clear coming up here and talking to folks looking at the data that our kids are leaving the range. We do have some kids who are staying here, but we have a lot of kids who are leaving the range and they are not coming back. Some do, but they're not. So we want to figure out a way that we can keep more kids on the range, because clearly there are jobs here, but what's happening is we have kids leaving the range by the hundreds because they think there are no jobs here, but there really are. They maybe aren't aware of them, they maybe haven't experienced with them, and when I say jobs, you hear a lot about the skilled trades, you hear about those types of positions, but we're also talking about white-collar jobs, software engineers. There's a multitude of jobs here. So we want to figure out, can we keep kids here on the range? Because we all know that this area, from 1970 to now, unfortunately, and this pains me to say it, is one of the worst growing population areas in the state of Minnesota. And even since 2000, it continues to be that way. We think this will help stem that growth. In addition to that, you've heard people talk about businesses are looking for a future workforce. I hear this everywhere I go. They are screaming for skilled technical and professional workers. They can't find them. We think this will help. In addition, kids, imagine this. Kids actually being in classrooms where they enjoy being there. I think we've all been in classrooms where we're sitting there thinking to ourselves, when am I ever going to use this? So with the career academies here, and the emphasis really is on the career part, not so much the academy part, part of what happens here is kids are much more in classes where they actually want to be. We have to gear the teaching and the classes to shift things around, so rather than a traditional high school, all the standards are still there, all the classes are still there, but how it's taught and what is being taught is very, very different. So we want kids who are being more engaged. In addition to that, less college debt. Every single group I've ever been with, when we start talking about college debt, you can literally see light bulbs turning on and heads shaking like this. Can we figure out a way so our kids have they're still going to go to college, and when I say college, I mean anything past high school. Can we figure out a better system so our kids have a better idea of where they want to go in life and with their career? They're still going to college, but can we figure out so they're not in debt 20, 30, you hear these horror stories. And parents, almost everyone knows some kid who has gone to college, taken a bunch of courses because they didn't know what to do. They thought they liked this, and then they switch majors, which is fine, but all of a sudden you're $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in debt. Well, that impacts your house you can buy, that impacts the car you can drive, that impacts when you can get married, that impacts how many kids you can have. It's a huge deal. This is a lot different than it was in the 80s and 90s because the federal money into higher ed has dropped. That means kids are borrowing more. So we think we can figure out a better way so kids have less debt. In addition to this, this type of career academy, which is focused on careers for kids, other businesses who are looking at this area, this would be a plus for the area. I've already talked to a number of people who own businesses who are not from the range, and I go, what do you think about this? And they go, you know, if I knew that high school was there, I'd think about relocating a business there or putting a business there, because everybody's worried about workforce. Where are we going to find the workers? Are they there? In addition to that, the second main area is we're also looking at stronger educational learning environment. What's different in the career academies, and kids would choose an academy in the 9th grade, we work hard with them, and yes, there's a way you can switch career academies. That's okay, because one of the important things we want to do with our kids is, one, figure out what they want to do much earlier, give them some experience and contact with it. But what also comes with that is kids figuring out what they don't want to do. I mean, can't we help our kids figure out what they don't want to do when they're sophomores, rather than sophomores in college? So this is a much more project-based, it's much more hands-on, it's much more student-focused, much more inquiry-based. College and the school courses are still there, advanced placement courses are still there, because once you get to the high school, size matters, especially on college and school advanced placement. And we're also looking at pathways for all kids, all kids. A lot of times you'll see schools trying to start things and do things, and that's great, fantastic, but they're looking at a niche. They're looking at a sliver of the students. So we want to set this system up for all kids, because we have kids who go to Harvard, Yale, Brown University. We want those kids to still be able to do that. We need to have programming for them. We have kids who still go to University of Minnesota, Duluth, Bemidji. We still need to have the system set up for those kids. We also have kids going to Mesabi Range College, Hibbing, Vermilion. We need to have the system set up for those kind of kids. And we also have kids who, they just want to work. They just want to graduate and go work. For some kids, that's a great option. So we need to set the system up so those kids are covered also. And involved with this, because we're talking multiple systems, I heard the comment earlier about a lot of moving pieces here. There are a lot of moving pieces here too. So we need to work with our area colleges to set the whole system up, so we're not isolated from what's happening with the area colleges. And then the third major part is, we know, and you heard Jeff talk about the survey results, and I'll talk about those in just a jiff. Supportive community. We have spent 2 years on this, 2 years plus. I've been in over 100 meetings. Jeff's been in over 100 meetings too, where we've had people from both communities, both schools together. We've had 11 school board meetings. People ask me, how do you do this? I say, well, all you got to do is have 11 joint school board meetings and 100 community meetings between the two districts, and then you can talk about doing something. This is a staggering number of meetings by almost any measure, any school, anywhere in the United States, trying to do something like this. And when we're talking to people, because this literally started, we went very slow in the beginning. It literally started with, we'd describe this to people and we'd say, what do you think? And then they tell us what they thought, and then we kept moving from there. When we talk to businesses, business people are very interested in this. When we talk to business people anywhere in the area, it takes about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and they get it. I have yet to run into a single business person to tell me this is a stupid idea, that this is a bad idea for our kids. That person might be out there, but I haven't heard a single business person say that to me yet. We know that parents are interested in this. We've talked to a lot of parents and heard back from a lot of parents and interest in this career academy, which is very different than a typical high school, especially parents who have had a kid go to college. And they also have kids coming up, because they know. They're comparing what their older kids have experienced and what they're doing and what their younger kids are doing, and they're very interested in this. And in addition, we know that our teachers, we've talked to all of our teachers, K-12, they've been in staff development, they've talked about this, they were also part of the survey too. We know that 90% of the teachers support this, K-12. We know that. We're not guessing. We know that. And when we know it's very important to have teachers, we're in the education business, heavy people, that's important to have your best employees, the teachers, they're the number ones. They are very interested in this, and they are telling us, keep going. This is a good deal for the kids. And on the survey, and then I'll quit talking here for a little bit, is the survey. The survey results are actually, that's a misprint, it's actually 77%. We asked some questions about everybody in all communities got this survey, and if they were accidentally missed, there was a way that they could pick up a survey. There was a way that 2 people in a household take the survey. The survey was valid. It was reliable. Now, I'm not going to say everybody liked the results of the survey because you might be surprised by what most people thought. So we're trying to go not by anecdotal, not by who complains the loudest, not by who talks the loudest, not by who mobilizes the biggest small group of people. We're trying to actually find out what does the average typical person really think in Eveleth, Gilbert, and Virginia about all this. So we know 77% of people are saying keep going. They like the fact that we're doing this. They support the concept of the 2 schools working together. And these are, and I heard this right away when I came up here, I heard that people are stuck in the mud, they don't change, they're not interested in doing anything different, and I am finding that not to be true. I am finding that once folks have an opportunity to hear what's available, what their options are, and what their opportunities could be, they are very, very interested. Because on this part, we're talking about literally 4 out of every 5 people in Eveleth, Gilbert, and Virginia are saying, green light, keep going.
So we have a few guests we'd like to give a few minutes to. First up, we have some students. We have Jacob Brun, Jacob Berdach, Kayla Wainapa from Eveleth, Gilbert, and America Ramirez Bernal, and Braden Akeley from Virginia. If you guys want to just stand up. Go ahead.
Okay, so, like, we've been to maybe about 5 or 6 meetings now, and we've talked to everybody, and we really think it's a really good idea. I mean, for us, we aren't going to be going to this school. We're just trying to think of the grades under us. I have family, so they might be going to this new school. And I think if I got to go to this school, it would have really helped because, like, for the future, if I can make those connections even with the businesses now, and I'm, like, doing more hands-on stuff, while I'm in high school, that'll save me a lot of money later because in college I might change my mind. And then especially the connection-wise, because connections are really big when you're getting older and you're trying to find a job. So if I already have a job lined up for right after college or something, that would be great. And like when we saw the academy in Alexandria, like the students there wanted to learn and everybody seemed just so happy to be there. Teachers combined classes and everything just seemed so efficient and effective. And it really looked like people were having fun learning, and they were finding out what they wanted to do in the process.
Well, as a junior, thinking about what's going to happen after high school is really stressful. I have no idea. Like, I think I like chemistry. I think I like math. And it's stressful to think of, oh, well, what am I going to be doing then if I like chemistry? And after hearing about the academies, I thought, wow, if I would have had that, I would have been able to actually know like what my career was going to be. Like I could have had so many opportunities to learn what was going to happen after high school. And well, as a junior, like we're not going to have it, but I do have a little brother, and I really want him to have like this opportunity.
I'm a PSEO student at Eveleth Gilbert. And I know that one problem that the high schools have is all of the students that leave and go to the PSEO program. And I feel like this kind of school, like the academy-style school, will make kids want to stay within the high school a lot more. And it will provide a better education for them and a better quality and get them more involved in what they want to learn.
Yeah, I really like the idea of this brand new academy. All the focus learning on like one subject. It's all personalized towards you. Because I got to go to Alexandria, and like he said, everyone there was just so intent on learning. It opened comfortable spaces for people to learn. I just really think we should go on with this.
The biggest thing about this project is it means hope. It means hope for our education, our futures. You know, looking at this, I won't get to experience this academy, but thinking that maybe someday my kids could go there, and just, it's so hopeful. And all of us students want this academy to be something that we can experience. And since we can't have it, we want to give it to those younger kids.
Thanks, guys.
Great job.
Well, first off,
want to thank the students because I know if I was a sophomore, junior, or senior in high school, I could have never gotten in front of a group like this. Thank you.
So we also have a couple representing teachers. We have Tim Strasser from Eveleth Gilbert and Troy Caddy from Virginia.
I'll go first because I'll be quick. I don't think you need anything else besides what those 5 said. And so, listen to the students.
I agree with Tim. These kids have been amazing. You've got students in here that are members, chair and board. You've got students in here from the student task force. There was over 40 of them that they looked at our buildings, they analyzed our buildings, they reviewed what academy learning could be and the possibilities of that. So they reviewed the curriculum that could be possible here. Then they went down and toured Alexandria. Alexandria's students led the discussion of what academies are and how it relates to their world and how it's benefited them as students. Then their students kind of went out and led a tour for our kids. And then the kids have reflected and given comments and feedback back to the groups and everyone. And their feedback has been very depth of the excitement that they saw. When you go to Alexandria, learning is taking place not just in classrooms, it's everywhere. It's very visible to see kids engaged throughout the buildings and at all levels. Learning is visible. There's not a better way to describe it. And then the excitement of the kids there, and then seeing these kids walk off and getting back on the bus and the excitement that that created with these kids about what we can do and what we should be able to do for our kids. Our kids are competing in the real world against these kids from the metro area or from other areas of the state and the country, and we need to be able to provide that opportunity for our kids because we can do that and we can do it as good, if not better, than anywhere else in the state. And this region can be the mecca for education, and that's where you see teachers jump on board with this because we become very passionate because we see the potential. I've been talking about this too much because I get too passionate about it, but as a parent and to see these kids and for them to realize the opportunity, we got to jump on board with this and we got to make it work. And you have a lot of teachers, community members, kids, parents, everyone across the board that are ready to knock on doors and do whatever it takes to make this a reality, and we can do it, and we can do it the right way, and we're ready to start partnering with some of these businesses to help you guys out, recruiting some other businesses and industries, because you're going to have a school district and probably several school districts down the road that are ready to say, hey, we're going to partner with you and your businesses that you bring to our communities, and we've got schools that are ready to pump out kids that are going to be ready to work, or they're going to go to college and they're going to come back here and learn and work. And that's what we want to see, and that's what I want to see as a parent as well, my kid coming back to this area. So, thank you.
Finally, I have representatives from the Laurentian Chamber of Commerce.
Jamie Lyseth, Board of Directors of Laurentian Chamber. Where would you like me?
You don't get away with being in the back of the room.
Also a parent, also a coach in the districts, also a business owner locally. And from a business perspective, we are hearing support, tremendous support for this project and what it means for this region, for our children, for our businesses, quality of life, all those things. So from a chamber standpoint, please, we are definitely behind this. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Chair and member of the board, Commissioner Phillips, thank you for letting me be here. Boy, it's tough to follow the last so, I mentioned to a joint board meeting to Virginia and Eveleth Gilbert the last time I was here, you know, this is about creating history, not for 5 or 10 years from now, but for the next 75 years. The boards are going to make some pretty important decisions on the 28th, along with you today, so I think everybody appreciates that. Well, I'm going to talk about the fun stuff, and that's the cost in the budget, right? Maybe not so much. We've heard about the Academy-style high school. There's also a discussion about the elementary schools, whether it's a lighter remodel, heavy, there's even been talk about replacement. First on the site, there was a site committee that talked about, I think, as many as 15 to 20 different sites.
I've heard it called the triangle. Where's the best location for this academy high school? Obviously, we have Virginia and Eveleth Gilbert. You can see on the map that we have sites A through G. A lot more study and time is being put into each of these sites. What makes sense on constructability, on cost, and more, and just important, is location in terms of busing, transportation, and things like that. So more to come on site selection. Quickly, costs, I won't go into detail of the numbers unless any members from the board would like some more detail. I would like to describe a little bit more. We should find a different term besides light remodel. It's much more than light remodel. You can see on the dollar signs on the left there, starting with 18.1 million. It is a very heavy infrastructure improvement, which means HVAC or indoor air quality improvement for the students to meet today's codes. The buildings do not meet code or even come close to code in terms of indoor air quality. It's lighting, it's boilers, it's roofs, it's safety, it's ADA, it's security. There's a number of other items that make up that 18.1 million and that 18.64. The light remodel means it's more, besides that infrastructure, there's also things like carpet and paint and things like that that are included. So we should maybe find a different term besides light remodel. On a heavy remodel, that's improving the elementary spaces in terms of academic spaces. And what you just heard about happens in elementary schools too, right? I mean, they get the kids, students to collaborate more and work together more. So that's more moving walls, creating really neat, nice learning spaces. The high school project is 113.99 million. Kind of feels like we should have rounded up, right? Deconstruction is demolition. Okay, there's a lot of square foot to demolish. There's also asbestos in the buildings that would have to be removed. The capitalized interest and bonding costs, I'll let Mr. Crow from Ehlers talk about that in a little bit. So our total, and you've heard these numbers, of 163.38 million. And for the new high school and heavy remodel, would be 181 million. And I certainly can answer more questions about that later. So I went through that quickly. From there,
I'm Greg Crow from Ehlers. We're the financial advisor to both of the school districts. It's nice to be here and talk to you a little bit about the financing and tax impact. We're rounding 4.9 million. We've been using about 4.995 in some of our estimates, so things could change a little bit. But basically, depending on the size of the bond issue that the districts pass, there'll be a partnership with this organization as well as the state of Minnesota. The state has a program called Debt Service Equalization Aid, where they contribute toward bond payments for school districts that have a lower property value. And so the goal is to maximize the state aid that we get, then have the partnership with the department come in, make a payment, and then the resulting balance will be funded by the taxpayers in the two school districts. You can see the change in the percent of each year's payments depending on the size of the bond, and it really has to do with that equalization. At these larger bond amounts, in the Virginia School District, the state picks up about 60% of each dollar added once we get above a certain point, and in Eveleth Gilbert about 40%. And so as the bond gets larger, you can see that the numbers shift a little bit. So what does it mean on a household for that bottom line, that participation by local taxpayers? We've got a couple of different values of residential homestead property that we're using as examples here: $75,000 homestead and $125,000. At the smaller bond size, it's about $80 annually in each district, and we've allocated the contribution of the IRRRB funds in such a way to so that taxpayers in each district will have the same effort when it comes to paying the bill on the school tax levy. So $80 annually, or less than $7 a month on the smaller bond size on a $75,000 home, and on the larger, about $112 annually, or less than $10 a month. On a $125,000 residential homestead, about $176 in both districts, and on the larger bond size, about $247 annually, or right around $21 a month.
Okay. So just some final thoughts. So in the early stages of this, and this is 2.5 years ago, Noel and I we started out by going out to smaller groups, just asking, like you said, just asking, what do you think about this kind of thing? And most people at that point would kind of pat us on the head and say, that's a really good idea, boys, but you got to understand where you're living here. And it's just not going to happen in our lifetime. We've all seen school mergers at some various point, attempts or actual school mergers, consolidations, and they usually don't go very well. And it's generally because it's one district or another is having financial difficulties, so you go into a conversation and it revolves around finance. This isn't that at all. We started out talking about how can we better provide educational services for our students, and it has remained that conversation throughout. To this day, we still haven't talked about finances, how this is all going to work, and maybe that scares you a little bit, but it's been all about what's the best thing that we can do for kids, what's the best thing we can do for the area. I have to give a lot of credit to our school boards. I mean, when you have two school boards from rival schools meeting for the first time, lots can go wrong. But all 13 of those members walked into that room with the understanding that the conversation was going to revolve around doing something better for kids than we're currently doing. And it's continued that way. They've gotten along well. And a lot of the reason that they've gotten along so well is from support from this board here. And we certainly appreciate that. The financial support during the planning phases. You can't even begin to imagine how much that's helped, because we aren't bickering over who's paying for what and things like that. So it's just helped. We've been able to have facilitators help us out, and it's just been an immense help that you guys have given us. And as far as what we're asking now, we understand it's a large ask. I'm guessing that a school district has never come in front of you asking for what we are right now. And we don't take that lightly. I mean, we certainly understand that we've taken our time. I think we've done the right thing. The process has been good. And when we come here before you today asking, we feel real confident that this is going to be a game changer for the Iron Range. And it's not, we certainly hear the conversation of, you're trying to build a bigger castle to rule the whole Iron Range, and that's not the case at all. We're not building a bigger castle to take everyone's students. We're building a beautiful facility to educate kids. And if we can really pull this off, I think others will follow. I think this could be a model that all of our schools up here can use. We are more than happy to help that process along once we get this one off, especially since one of us will be unemployed. But anyway, we really thank you for listening to us today. We appreciate it. I hope you consider it. This is going to be pretty awesome if it happens.
And let me kind of put this in the larger context, and you can fire away and ask us any questions you would like. This is enormous by almost any measure. I am not aware of any school districts or district in the state of Minnesota anywhere that is doing any type of discussion on such a macro level as this. Nor I am aware of anybody in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin doing anything like this on this scale, as far as actually trying to integrate two districts, the level and depth of the programming that we're talking about. That's how unusual this is, who you have sitting in front of you. And some people have accused me of, they say, well, you guys are kind of the odd couple, because he's the guy who's been here forever, and you're kind of the new guy who's just kind of showing up. But Jeff has been great through all of this. And then in the larger context is the reality is that we've talked locally here about kids and jobs and changing education. But the reality is our kids are also competing against the world. Because I have no social life, I visited, studied schools, not as a tourist, in London, Moscow, Krasnoyarsk, Beijing, Hong Kong, among others, and Helsinki, where a lot of Finlanders, forefathers and foremothers are from, and you don't understand. I remember turning around in Hong Kong, looking at everything, and I'm thinking to myself, our kids need to up their game. I need to up my game because we are competing. Every single company on the range, to a certain extent, is competing on this worldwide stage. We need a different platform. We're educating kids for 2030 and 2040. We're not educating them for, please don't educate them for when I was going through high school. It's not 1970 or 1980 anymore. Yeah, kind of dating myself here, I know. You know, but the reality is for our kids, that's where we need to keep the focus is on the kids. And so what we're asking for is the communities we know are supporting this. The communities want to move forward with this. I know the dollars scare everybody, but I think it's time for this area, east end of the range, to make a decision to decide in which direction do you want education to go for the future. Do you want to keep it status quo? Do you want to, or do you want to move it and take it somewhere? Which way do you want to go? And that's what part of our ask is. We can move it. We'll do that. We'll help pass this with the voters. We're just asking for a little help along the way. And so now we'll take questions from anyone.
Thank you, gentlemen. Questions from the board? Representative Sandstead.
I have a whole page of questions, so I apologize. First of all, can you tell the board a little bit, and maybe audience members, in terms of the academy model, how many academies across the state, or in, you know, how common is an academy style education?
Probably the correct term is probably career academy style. A lot of schools are called academies, but they could be Plato Academy, they could be college, there's a lot of different academies. We're using the wording career academy. There's a sprinkling of these across the United States. I heard the comment earlier that we used to do some of this stuff back in, if you were around then, some of these programs used to exist in schools in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, and then no child showed up, and that kind of put the kibosh on a lot of these occupational, vocational training programs. We don't need to get into that right now, but historically they were here. So what's happening is there is a resurgence, and there's a sprinkling of these across the United States. It's the granddaddy is probably in Tennessee, where the first one on a large scale was created. In Minnesota, Alexandria was the first. That was probably 6-ish years ago that they did that. Shakopee in the Twin Cities has completely realigned, and that's a massive high school, into career academies. They have 7 of them. They can do it because they have nearly 3,000 students. Burnsville also is doing this. However, in the rural area, what is extremely unique about this one, anywhere in the United States, is 2 school districts talking about doing this, which adds more moving parts to it. But the good news is, because it has happened in so many other areas, we can learn from things that didn't go well and things that went well. For example, we know right now that Alexander severely underbuilt their tech ed area, and they've realized that was a mistake. They're kind of stuck right now. So we can learn from that and do a little smarter job.
Representative Sampson.
In part of our packet, the rationale was talking about how this model is really grounded with community and business partners, and we heard that today too. There are other formats that do something very similar. We see that over on the west end of the range somewhat. Can you maybe give us a little idea of why you feel this model either has an edge up or is a complement to what else is happening on the range?
It is that what's different with this one is that we're talking about every single kid. So the entire high school is being oriented around this. There are schools all over the state of Minnesota who are doing parts of it, You'll hear Performing Arts Academy. You'll hear STEM. You'll hear Science and Technology or something like that. But when you look at what they're actually doing, look behind the marketing and the publicity, it's really only a section of the kids who have these opportunities. It's usually one class or two classes, or maybe there's 100 kids. We're talking about thousands of kids moving through the system and all having experience with that. So that's probably the single biggest difference, is just on the scale, is that when we talked about this, and we talked about this with the school boards, about they were at the very beginning, and they made fun of my drawings and designs and et cetera. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, ask them. They'll start laughing and tell you, God, his drawings are horrible. But we talked about there's all sorts of different ways this could go, school within a school, stuff like that. That's not where the boards wanted to go. We continually heard, if this is good for some kids, why wouldn't we do this for all of our kids? And that's kind of evolved the thinking over time.
Representative Sandsted.
And then, as you move forward in this, you're going to start out as a collaborative effort, eventually looking at a consolidated effort, or?
Yeah, just because of the way the financing is with the state aid right now, we can't consolidate. It's in our best financial interest at the moment to stay separate, but the natural course of things would be, once we start going down that road, that would become a conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then also looking at the money, you're looking at, your ask is that the board here appropriates some amount of money, the state pitches in, and then there's the local taxpayer portion of it. The state part of the money is calculated on a formula, as I understand it. That's correct? That's what you were talking about, Mr. Allers. Have mistakes been made in the past? How reliable is that formula, in your opinion? And if there's a mistake, who's on the hook for any kind of difference financially?
I'm not sure what you mean by have mistakes been made. It's fairly straightforward calculation based on the tax capacity of the school district per pupil. And the contribution is different for each school district, and there are thresholds for certain levels of contribution. As we've structured, we probably had 100 bond elections in the last 5 years, and probably the one closest, most similar to this was the Moose Lake School District, the Rushford-Peterson School Districts, in terms of the amount of state participation. And everything is coming in exactly how we predicted during the election process for those school districts. So I won't say mistakes have ever been made, but as we've planned these, we've never had an issue with our calculations and estimations of the state participation. And those calculations will be included in the review and comment process when we send the proposal to the state for their review. So it's pretty confident that how this was set up, and it actually came out of the bills that were drafted in 2014. So we've got some experience in making the calculations on this particular program, and fairly confident that we're in pretty good shape.
I appreciate that. I haven't had an experience with that kind of an appropriation yet, or seen that in play, and my understanding is that there have been mistakes in the past, and really I just want to ensure if there's an adjustment in the amount coming from the state level, and I know you probably can't speak for the state, but who's going to be on the hook for any kind of an adjustment? Is that going to come back to the board? Will that go back to the taxpayers in each of your communities?
Well, yeah, I just, I don't expect there to be a mistake. If the aid amount is off, then ultimately it would be the taxpayers would be on the hook, or the districts could come back here and ask for assistance, but I don't really see that as an issue given where we're at.
Thank you. And then as you get into, I'm anticipating and I'm very excited about seeing this project going forward. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, if our demographics change, if the needs of our communities change or look different, do you have the ability to go back within this new facility to a traditional based education model, if needed?
That's one of the beauties of the building that we're planning, is it has movable walls, if you will, so that as time changes and needs change, that the building can change with us.
Thank you. And finally, this is probably not for this group, but maybe for the commissioner. If we were to make an investment in a project of this magnitude, what does it look like for other districts going forward in terms of opportunities? I've had a lot of emails, a lot of comments and concerns. What is it going to do to the rest of us? What kind of pool of money is going to be available? And I just want to, I've shared this with the commissioner before, but go on the record of saying this fund is really an opportunity. And it was created for the purpose of collaboration, not for one-upmanship and competing and cutting out other districts. And I have seen, and this is mostly to the superintendents who might be listening, you know, really I would like to encourage working together in a transparent and honest way, rather than you get something, so now we need something, and looking at projects on their merit rather than on what somebody else is getting.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Chairman, I agree with you on this. And so we run cash flows on this fund based on what's in law. And we've had some benefit of, we haven't done a lot of projects yet, so the fund has actually been building. We have shared those, and we can share those again today even. We've printed some. But it's like any other numbers, it's without a lot of explanation, it's dangerous just to pass them out to everybody at this point. But if the board wanted a presentation on that, we could do that at some point. But the point is, we're watching the cash flows, so exactly what you say, so other districts will have opportunities to come forward. We don't have a crystal ball, but we can see that there are districts that have moved forward with projects like Grand Rapids, whatever. We think there might be potential, don't take this literally, but it could be potential between Nashua, Keewatin, Greenway or something like that. So we think there's going to be some other collaborations coming forward. And then the fund was designed, I think Senator Bach would agree with me on this, not only to fund bricks and mortar collaborations, but also curriculum and programmatical collaborations. So we're anticipating we're going to see some future things. And it may be the opportune time to bring this up because the staff has developed over time guidelines for how these funds might be used. And we've been a little reluctant because when you're starting something brand new, you know, it's, we've done one project at a time. So we've done, you know, Mesabi East, St. Louis County, Grand Rapids schools, some in both curriculum and some infrastructure help. Mountain Iron, Buell, with their school, with St. Louis County Schools collaboration. So, you know, we might want to appoint a working group, small working group of maybe 4 members or something to talk about what the guidelines might look like going forward. So that's something I was going to recommend kind of at the end, but I can bring it out now. No, we're very concerned, you know, about to make sure there's lots of opportunities for everybody else on the range from this fund. And we don't see why there can't be.
Thanks, Commissioner. Senator Thomasoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first let me thank you for the hard work that you guys have done because, quite frankly, we wouldn't be sitting here if Noel had any understanding of the Iron Range. And this collaborative fund, I think, is turning out to be a real positive thing also. you guys, the fact that you've had as many meetings as you have, and the fact that you've gone around the communities and surveyed as many people as you have, and have gotten the feedback that you had, makes this a pretty interesting project that has the potential to actually go forward. I want to tell the kids that spoke that you're very gracious in thinking about the future of the Iron Range and thinking about how the potential educational opportunities here could be better than what you've experienced. But I got to tell you, the fact that you're sitting here and you were able to make the speeches you made, you had a pretty darn good education also. You're getting a pretty good education. And I want to compliment the teachers and administrations that are running the school districts up here, because excellence in education on the Iron Range has always been something that we've really, really been proud of. And the fact that we're trying to make it even better is an indication that we still understand how important education is, and that you're not going to the next level in your life unless you do get an education, and probably some post-secondary education. So I just, this is going to be up to the voters now. It's going to be up to the school boards to make the decision. I think that we as a board have to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And so we'll let the people decide after this. But with those words, I'm just going to move the resolution and say I think we should pass this and let the people of the area decide what to do next.
Second. So there's a motion to pass this resolution.
Mr. Chair, before we vote.
I'm not going to ask for a vote. I'm going to get a second, and we'll have more discussion.
Okay.
All right. Representative Lizagard seconds the motion. Discussion. Representative Sandsted.
Thank you. I just need to, in a spirit of full disclosure, let the board and the members know that I am an employee of one of these districts, and it is not a conflict of interest for me to vote on this or to give my advice on this, but I just want people to know that I am an employee and I have sought legal advice on this, and we're good to go.
Any other discussion?
Can I?
Yeah, Representative Lehman.
Yeah, I just have a question. This is huge. No, this is huge, and I'm just hoping that this academy model works, because I would hate for us to invest this kind of time, energy, and money into a building. And so my question has to do with more than the building, because the academy model is complete transformation of how you are educating the kids. I don't know if this is a question for the superintendents or this is a question for the teachers that we heard from. But what I'm hearing is that this is a new way of teaching, and it probably has to do with a collaboration with the business community, which probably means bringing business people into the classroom and so on. So I'd like to just hear how long will it, I mean, sure, I know how long it's going to take to build the buildings, but how long will it take for the teachers to transform their teaching methods so that the academy model is flowing?
Some of the teachers are already there. We already have great teachers who are already doing a lot of these things. So for them, it's not new. They're already doing it. For other teachers, the good news on this is we have, even before the doors on this building would open, we have 3 years. And so we have 3 years to work with teachers, give them staff development, have them talk to other teachers, go visit other places, and get the system set up. We also have 3 years, and my recommendation to any boards would be we're going to need somebody kind of organizing this with the business and the school relationships. That would start before the doors even opened. So we would have 3 years to set everything up so that we'd be off the ground and running. And we've also learned from a lot of schools who have already done this before. So I'm pretty confident that with the 3-year window before the doors actually open, that we can go quite a long ways as far as with teachers, with the businesses, and the communities, and having them go there. And then I just want to add in regards to will this stand the test of time, is that I'm acutely aware, because, as Jeff has pointed out so aptly, is that I've been around. I'm not 25 years old. Is that I've seen a lot of these school reforms come and go. People try and do something. And so what you want to do is you want to have a system set up, because Edward Deming, remember Edward Deming, the quality, he always said, it's the system. It's not the people that's the problem. It's the system. So we want to set the system up so the system is bigger than one or two people. You don't want a system where if one person leaves or something happens, the system collapses. So this system is solid. You can go anywhere around the world, and I've been there. They are the great schools, the ones that everybody's pointing at and saying, we want to do that. They're doing this kind of stuff right now, in addition to the other things that they're doing. So this is not some novelty that's going to wear off in 5 years or 8 years or something like that. This is the direction that anywhere in the world you go, the great schools are doing this type of heavy career preparing schools, higher order inquiry type hands-on thinking skills. They're doing it, and it's standing the test of time.
Representative Lehman?
That was my question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Bach, you have a question?
I'll just go real quickly. So when Iron Range Engineering was set up as applied engineering, project-based, and they were just announced that they were one of the 5 best applied engineering programs in the world. Very similar model to this, where it's working on groups, problem solving, collaboration, critical thinking, all the things that you're talking about. We've actually kind of had a preview of that with Iron Range Engineering a little bit. So
thank you, Mr. Smith. You had a comment?
Mr. Chair, the Commissioner just covered it. I think it's a classic example of investments that we've made in the past paying off in the future. As the Commissioner mentioned, Iron Range Engineering just down the street is a globe, not a national or statewide, but globally recognized as a leader in project-based learning. And so to have them here as a resource, I think is a tremendous advantage for this project.
Any other questions from the board? Senator Bach?
Well, thank you, Chairman. Thank you to all of you who have been working very hard to get us to this day. And Representative Sandstein, I do have a conflict. I have 2 grandsons that are probably going to be in this academy, providing their employment situation and their family situation stays on the Iron Range. And I want to make a plea to seniors, because the amount of seniors that we have living on the Iron Range are probably going to determine, they vote in larger numbers than other voters, they're probably going to determine the outcome of this. And a lot of them probably aren't going to think they personally have a benefit in it, because we're going to ask a lot of seniors on fixed incomes to help us with this for the future of our communities. When Senator Thomasoni and I put this school account into law back in 2014, we wanted to help the St. Louis County rural schools because they had already made some real tough decisions. Co-located some campuses, closed some buildings, and took the heart out of some small towns in the best interest of the kids. And we wanted to help mitigate some of the impact of that, because for them, they got almost no debt service equalization aid. The taxpayers paid the entire bill on a $78 million bond. So we wanted to provide some help for them, and same for Mesaba East, whose voters had already made a decision to co-locate some buildings. But this was the project I think we both were dreaming about, right here in the core Iron Range for the future. So just to those seniors, I just want to say, and Mr. Smith mentioned this, the state has a program called the Property Tax Refund Program, and we spend over $500 million a year buying down people's property taxes. And your household can have incomes up to $113,000, and if your property taxes are high relative to your income, you can get a refund on the cost of your property taxes. So now, unfortunately, about a third of the people in the state eligible for the refund don't claim it. They either don't know about it or whatever it is, or the number would be way more than 500 million. But so to those seniors on fixed incomes, that this is going to be a little bit of a burden for you. It might cost you, depending on the model, $80 a year, or maybe even $150 a year. there's a pretty good chance, if you look into it with your accountant, that the state's gonna buy some of that burden down for you through the property tax refund program. So, I just want them to know, who probably aren't gonna have any skin in the game here, not gonna have kids, or maybe even have grandkids that attend it, we need your help. Because I know you're gonna vote in big numbers, and I know you really care about the range, that's why you're still here. So help us make sure that this next generation of young people are educated like we've never done it before. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Representative Lizagard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to say what an incredible meeting to be my first. I kind of 3 takeaways. First, that I can sit here for 2 hours and not say a whole lot. That was impressive. Secondly, then all the amount of work, and I had an opportunity wearing other hats to listen to you guys and watch you guys work and have all these different meetings and getting all this input. We aren't over the finish line, but I think with a good foundation and a good base and a good understanding, people can make the right decisions, and I think that's important because the intent of everybody is to do what's best for the kids, right? And bricks and mortars are one thing, but education in the future of our children and our next generation is everything. So I just want to thank everybody that participated, members of the community that also were engaged. I think that's extremely important. So it's truly an honor to be a part of this historic day. I will be supporting it, and I thank you all. And then finally, the other thing I learned is don't drink 3 cups of coffee and be that far away from the bathroom.
Any other comments from the board? Thank you, gentlemen, and the community for the effort put into this. I'm excited about it. And so Senator Thomasoni renews his motion for Resolution 19-024, seconded by Representative Lizagard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like the minutes to reflect that the vote was unanimous.
I'd just like to say, we don't get applause very often, so thank you. One last thing, this is the first meeting since Tom Rukavina died, and he would be very, very proud of us right now, just so you know. Thank you.
Okay, any other business come for this board? Senator Root.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the staff and the board. Last November, after the meeting, I mentioned that I had the opportunity to interact with a trip of a lifetime to Taiwan. And so the staff put together one of the things that you do when you go to another country and you visit their government relations is you have to bring gifts. And so they put together some wonderful packages of all the things that say IRRRB on them. And so they put together these packages, and they also gave me a beautiful hard-covered book. And so the hard-covered book of the Iron Range history went to the City Council of Taipei, and they were very excited to see the history of and some wonderful things about Minnesota, and the other government entities got nice packages of things that were all about the IRRRB plus the brochures. So I just wanted to thank the board and the staff members for putting that together for me, because it was really fun to watch them see what we're all about in Minnesota, and I really think that was a great thing. So thank you for doing that for me. It was a great who knows, maybe they'll come here and do business with us, right? So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rood. We do have a great staff here, that's for sure. Yeah, Senator Bach.
On the staff front, I just want to add my thank you to the staff that came to St. Paul this week for Duluth and St. Louis County Days. There's nothing easy about standing at a booth hours on with endless streams of people coming through. And so those of you staff that came down and helped man that IRRRB booth to put a face on the Iron Range and took time away from your family to come down and do that, I just want to acknowledge my thanks, and thanks, I think, of all of us.
Mr. Chairman, they had a 5-hour drive through the snow.
Yes.
And then they stood there for all those hours. But I do want to point out, we partnered with Rams on our booth. And one thing with my reappointment, I promised myself I would rededicate to improve our relationship with Rams. So I think we're trying to do that a lot. We appreciate the communities. We work with them all the time individually, but sometimes we don't work with them as a group. So I'm hoping that we can work on that relationship.
Any other business come for the board? We're adjourned.
Thank you very much for your
Get it out.